Hey guys, welcome to the video. This is just a real basic video on anatomy. We'll be looking at bone names, muscle names, type of joint movement, agonist and antagonist, the role of the ligaments, and the role of the tendons. Alright, so here is a snapshot of the human skeleton. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause the video where we're at now, study the names, take down any notes if you need to. Once you're finished, carry on. Alright, same as before, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause the video, study the muscle names as much as you can, take down any notes. Once you're happy, carry on. Alright, looking at types of joints. Today we're going to be focusing on two types of joints. The first one, we are looking at the elbow and the knee joint over here. Over here, what you can see is a door hinge. The reason why I've put this on here is really important because the elbow and the knee are both hinge joints. If you think about the elbow and the knee, they can only create two movements. You can only lift your arm up towards your shoulder and then lift it back down again. Same as a door, it can only open and close. So that's the analogy I like to use. Your elbow and your knee are hinge joints, similar to the hinge on the door. Alright, here we have the shoulder and the hip joint. We call these two joints ball and socket joints. If we look here at your hip, here we have the top of your femur. This part here on the femur is the ball. And if we look at the pelvis, this part here, that's the socket that the ball sits into. So it's a nice freely movable joint. So there's more than just the two movements. I can rotate it, I can lift it. So that joint is called a ball and socket joint. Alright, so now the movements at the joint. So if we look at flexion, flexion is decreasing the angle at the joint. This page here is really good notes to write down. Flexion, decreasing the angle at the joint. So making the angle smaller. So just to show you here, we're looking at elbow flexion. So if we measure the angle at number 1 here, we're looking at about 180 degrees. Here, we're looking at about 100, 110 degrees. So that's gotten smaller from number 1. The angle's decreasing. Even again, even smaller, we're looking at about 80 degrees. Here, about 40 degrees. So flexion, the angle is decreasing or getting smaller. Extension is the opposite to what we just looked at. It is increasing the angle at the joint. This is also a good note to write down. Extension, increasing the angle at the joint. The angle's getting bigger. So if we look here at this tennis player, they're starting off at flexion, so the angle's decreased. Here again, 1, 2, 3, the angle's starting to get larger. 4, Again, the angle's increasing. Number 4, we're probably looking at 90 degrees, a little bit bigger. We're almost at 180 by picture number 6. So this is extension. The angle at the joint, if we look at the measurements, is increasing. Increasing. Easy. So now looking at muscles and how they work. We know that all muscles work in pairs. Muscles cannot work alone. So we give these muscles 2 names. The first one is the agonist. We also call this the prime mover. This is the contracting muscle. This is also a good note to write down. Agonist is the contracting muscle. The second muscle is called the antagonist. It's also known as the secondary mover. This is the relaxing muscle. So write this down. Agonist is the relaxing muscle. So here we're looking at our elbow again. So if we look at elbow flexion, the 2 muscles that work together, one on the front here, hopefully you're able to name it, it's the bicep, and the one on the back here is the tricep. Hopefully you got those 2 names right. So we know in flexion, the angle of the joint is decreasing. So if you straighten your elbow now so it's extended, and you tense up both your bicep and your tricep, you won't be able to bend your elbow. Both muscles, in order to work together, one needs to contract while the other relaxes and helps stabilize the movement. So if we're looking at this movement here of elbow flexion, we're looking at the bicep as the agonist and the tricep as the antagonist. So the bicep is contracting, so it's getting smaller, while the tricep is relaxing. So if we look at this next picture here, you can actually see here in elbow flexion, the bicep contracting and the tricep relaxing. Whereas the opposite here in extension, you can see the bicep clearly relaxing. It's different to the first picture and the tricep contracting. Alright, ligaments. The 2 roles of the ligaments. 1, it connects bone to bone. 2, helps stabilize the joint. Really good notes to write down, guys. Ligaments, 1, connect bone to bone. 2, help stabilize the joint. The 2 roles of tendons. Number 1, they connect muscle to bone. Number 2, transmit force between muscle and bone. Also write down these notes, guys. So again, tendons, number 1, connect bone to... Let me start that one again. Tendons, number 1, connect muscle to bone. Number 2, transmit force between muscle and bone. So here's a really good picture here. So tendons bind muscle to bone, right here, here, and here. Ligament bind bone to bone. So you can see them between each of the joints here. There's heaps of them. Alright, so I want you guys to answer 4 questions for me here. So we're looking at a basketball shot, and we are looking at the knee joint. So I want you to answer number 1, what type of movement is happening at the knee? If you can't remember, I'd like you to pause the video, scroll back to type of movement, watch the video again, and then have a go at answering it. If you can answer it now, awesome, well done. Number 2, movement. What movement is happening at that joint? Again, if you don't know, scroll back. 3, what is the agonist? And number 4, what is the antagonist? If you're unsure, scroll back. If you've answered all 4 questions and you want to check your answers, they are here. So number 1 is a hinge joint. Number 2, flexion. So you can see the angle at the joint is decreased. Number 3 is the hamstring. This muscle right here is the agonist. And number 4 is the quadricep, which is this muscle on the front here. If you got all 4 of those correct, well done. If you didn't, I would like you to go back and re-watch the video at the point where you got the answer wrong. So whether it was the type of joint, the movement, the agonist or the antagonist, I would like you to watch that video again. Now, the last thing you need to do is study. Study all of the notes you've taken down. If you'd like to re-watch the video, you're welcome to re-watch it as many times as you want. Otherwise, good luck, guys.